From where the West begins in Fort Worth, Texas, to around the globe, you are listening to Talk in the Night. Later on in the show tonight, we're going to be talking with my guest, Joy Elaine, as we talk about the future of humanity and Earth. But first, scientists have created a real-life board network. Researchers have succeeded in hooking together the brains of 3 people to create a short network. Known as the BrainNet, the remarkable achievement was made possible using a combination of EEGs, which records the electrical impulses from the brain activity, and transcranial magnetic situation, TMS, which simulate neurons using magnetic fields. In a recent experiment, 2 senders had their brains connected up to the network and were asked to control a Tetris-style game by way of staring at one or 2 different flashing LEDs. So, I mean, they're trying to connect this all together, and this could be a good or bad thing. And this story kind of goes in with tonight's topic of the future of humanity and our Earth. So let's bring in my guest, Joy Elaine, to the show so we can talk about this and her books. So welcome to the show, Joy.
Hi, Phil. Thanks for having me. Glad to have a chance to speak with people tonight.
It's a pleasure.
Yep.
So tell the listening audience a little bit about yourself.
I'm a baby boomer, one of the earlier ones, and I'm an author, written 6 books, self-published, and actually finished the 10th one, although I haven't published 7 through 10. And I'm writing about, and the books are called The Joy Chronicles, and I started investigating energy healing modalities in about 2000 or so. And in 2003, I came across a modality that I loved that fit me really well called Serenity Vibration Healing. Mm-hmm. And I started working with that myself to get myself clear so that I could maybe figure out why in the heck I was here. And then after I'd done that for several years, I kind of looked around and I decided, maybe Earth and humanity could use some help too. So I started doing more energy work, and the beginning of the first book, which I wrote called Path of Sweetness, I stepped energetically aboard an Ashtar command ship on the 10th dimension above Earth. And that's when the story began.
Okay, so you mentioned the 10th dimension. Now, what dimension are we considered in compared to like the Ashtar command that you talk about in the 10th dimension?
All right, that's a great question. So let me first explain that the people that I get this information from are ascended masters. They have no agenda. They don't lie. They're in the perfected bodies, and so they're the highest of beings that I could talk to, because I'm not interested in speaking to anybody who's got an agenda or who's got something going on that they're not looking for the highest good for Earth and humanity. All right. So those beings, for example, Sananda and Isis and Hathor and Thoth and even the embodiment of Earth that we call her Gia. They've told me, here's the information that they've shared with me. All of Earth physically exists in the 5th and or 6th dimension or a blend thereof. Of course, all of us, we have more than our physical bodies. We also have energy, and we're energetically everywhere. That's the whole theory of we're all one. Mm-hmm. So the 3rd dimension left Earth in 2009. The 4th dimension left Earth in 2015. When I say left, I mean they just, enough people, enough like-minded people had started doing enough things like, loving themselves more, being more conscious and being more mindful in their lives, practicing whatever form of spirituality they were drawn to. Enough of us have been doing that the vibration of Earth has been rising. We're all in a process of ascending.
Yeah, because I was going to
ask.
Go ahead.
I'm not talking about, when Jesus floated off in the air. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about everybody's vibration gradually speeding up, Earth's vibration speeding up to moving into the higher dimensions. So nobody was left behind in those dimensions. Gia told me that nobody's going to be left behind. We're all rising. We're all moving up. So the coolest thing, and this is one of the things I talk about a lot in my books, is that when we get to the 8th dimension, that's the first non-dual dimension for Earth.
Yeah.
We've always lived in duality. As long as Earth has existed and as long as humans have been alive, we've been in a dual world. That means there's opposites. There's resistance to creation. There's struggle. There's good, bad, high, low, black, white, cold, hot. The extremes that we go through.
Good, evil,
non-duality,
stuff like that.
Right, yes, good, evil. Right. Non-duality, there's none of that. There's no resistance to creating. So listen to these next words. In non-duality, manifestation is instant. Instant. You want a diamond on your hand, you got a diamond on your hand. You want to look 25, you look 25. You want to be 2 inches taller, you're 2 inches taller. You want to manifest a mansion, you have a mansion. And that means that people have evolved. You won't be able to move into that reality until you've let go of your hatred, until you've really cleaned up your act so that you're not putting on an act. And there's lots of ways that we're doing that. We're just becoming more in tune to, the best parts of ourselves, our higher selves, our God selves.
Yeah. Now, I was going to ask, before we got too far out of it, what are like the differences between, because you mentioned the 3rd dimension, the 4th dimension, what are the differences in the dimensions?
Well, there's although it seems like there's a lot of turmoil going on, that's stuff coming up to be released, okay? Things brought to light so that they can be cleared and healed. So as you move into these higher dimensions, you're going to notice more ease and more grace in your life. You're going to notice things happening faster. We've always manifested. We're creating our own reality. You've heard that term, I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
So, and we're starting to be able to do that in a faster and easier manner. And so that's kind of teaching us to move more towards that instant manifestation because, we've got a lot of, just describing this, we've got some stuff going on in our minds, a lot of us, about busy, 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 And we're taught to look for things that are wrong. Mm-hmm. And of course, when you focus on whatever's wrong, then you just create more wrong.
Okay.
So it's just a mind. It's a mastering your mind. It's thinking about what you really choose, focusing on the good things in your life, and that is really easier to do as you move into the higher dimensions. They're vibratory fields. Each dimension has a system of grids, energetic grids, has a system of kind of a lower collective consciousness, lower thought forms of more struggle, more survival. 3rd dimension was really fight for your life. It was really just the whole thing about survival of the fittest. And that's going to be less and less of that as we move into the higher dimensions. It's such great news, really. When you stop and think about instant manifestation, my life until I heard that news, till I was told, I've been told that over and over, not just by one of the masters, but by many of them, was just assuming, well, I've watched my parents get old, I watched my parents die, and that's what's going to happen for me. that's what my life was always about until I heard this other information, which was you don't have to choose that.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to tell people about that. That was my whole impetus for starting to write these books.
Okay, so basically, we're not quite there yet.
Nope. No, but we will. We will be.
All right.
I've seen that.
Now, did they mention of any kind of time frame for something like this?
Well, it's kind of like everybody's at a different level in their evolution. All right. Some people, maybe some that are listening to us now, they have no idea what about any of this, what I've talked about. It's just completely off the radar. Now, hopefully, there's enough people listening who have an inkling, who've been kind of waking up and saying, hey, why am I here?
Yeah.
The real thing that I've been told is that everybody that's here now, either consciously or unconsciously, is here because this is the pinnacle time to be on Earth. This is the happening time. All these, I do want to try to pin them down. The masters say, well, when's that going to happen? And they said, well, what if we tell you a date and you could have manifested it sooner than that?
Yeah.
So they're really pretty hard to pin down. It could be, for me, this is not to brag, but it's just some things I've been focusing on. I've been focusing on myself, working on myself really, really intensely for many years. So I don't think it'll be as long for me. I intend to be one of the first people to move into that eighth dimension. I'm hoping in the next maybe 5 years.
Okay.
It could be 20 years for some people. It could be 50 years for others. People that are just, they get up, they go to their job, they come home, they watch TV, they go to bed.
Yeah. The usual mundane existence.
Right. And that was my life for a lot of my life. I think sometimes when you're younger, that was a pattern that I saw my parents follow, and that's how I started out. And then I realized, hey, I'm the same route that they were. I don't want to live that way. I want to find out really why I'm here, and that I want to have fun while I'm here. My name is Joy.
Yeah.
And that's something I'm attempting to live up to.
Trying to live up to the namesake.
Right. Yes, and that's really why we're all here, to play. We got really serious about life, and that's okay too. But gosh, if you're not having fun, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, as the old saying goes, all work and no play. Yeah.
Yeah, dull. Really dull.
It can. Like I said, I'm constantly working, but I try to enjoy myself when I can. And of course, I do a lot of meditation also when I can, because that also relaxes me and stuff like that. And I know, looking at your website, that you do Reiki.
Reiki, I have studied that. Yeah. I took the first level of that, and then I discovered this serenity vibration healing, and that fit me better. So that's the modality that I've practiced since 2003, and I've been able to kind of put some of that energy healing into my books. The people are, in the 6 books that I've written, they're chronological, and they offer readers opportunities to be part of the work that we're doing, that I'm doing with the Ashtar Command and with this council that we form in the second book. We were talking about the Ashtar Command, and I kind of got sidetracked. You said, they're on the 10th dimension above Earth, and that's really a high vibrational energy. It's really delicious. It's easy. There's I like to visit there, and there's a part of me that in that first book, a part of me eventually ended up staying there all the time. So there's like me here on Earth, and then Joy on Tonos's spaceship. So at that time, when I stepped aboard that spaceship, he told me that there were 86 million Ashtar Command ships above Earth on that 10th dimension and higher. Just being there so that
just kind
other
of to watch things.
Right. Just so that other worlds were not allowed to come and take things away or attack us. I thought it pretty interesting to find out that the Earth is the most important world in the everything. I mean, nobody thinks that. We think, well, we're just a little speck out here.
A little speck in the whole universe.
Oh, no, right. But it's really, I was astonished when he told me that, among many other things. It was really surprising. And you read my books, you'll find out why. There's an energy area associated with Earth where every being with a soul from all the universes will end up. I think you could probably call it would be heaven in the traditional term. But it's an energy field called the fifth realm. And it's not the fifth dimension. It's the fifth realm. And it's just a part of us, part of everybody listening on this call and part of everybody living on Earth has an energy presence in that area. So my mom and dad are there. They died in 2014, and I still get a chance to talk with them. They're having a great time. It's
Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen them even. So.
Yeah.
I've also seen. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
I was going to say, what is the difference between, like the dimensions and the fifth realm that you talked about?
Well, it's not really a dimension. It's just an area. It's an area of energy.
Okay.
And when you're there, you get a chance. People that die or ascend end up there, like I said, from all the universes. By the way, there's 47 universes. And while you're there, you get a chance to experience doing everything that you didn't get a chance to when you were alive. So, for example, my mother, when she was alive here on Earth, she never finished high school. And now in the fifth realm where she is, she's graduated from high school several different times. And both of my parents, they grew up very poor. They were farmers, and now they've had experience of being wealthy. So you just get the whole smorgasbord of everything you missed when you were alive. That's really cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, fun. My dad can play the fiddle. He never was able to do that when he was alive. So I enjoy chatting with him, and and it's good to know that there's really no end. There's no end to your life.
Yeah. Now, of course, last night I had a guest on talking about reincarnation and past lives and everything. We talked about the eternity is not like what is pretty much presented in like the Bible where we go to heaven and that's eternity there. No, our souls and everything like that are constantly going in its eternity. So we're pretty much we're right there. It's not like once we go, we're dead and gone pretty much into like heaven, if you believe in that. Me, like you mentioned the fifth dimension, I believe in as a Wiccan, I believe in a higher plane of existence. But again, it's all just the same thing, just different wording.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So, 10th dimension, 9th, 10th, Earth has 25 dimensions. And once we've moved through all of those dimensions, everybody on Earth and Earth herself will end up in the fifth realm. So, and then when we're there, this is the cool thing. everybody there gets to experience everything they didn't get to experience when they were alive, and then the whole game begins over again. Another creation starts. So there's no end. There's no end to the wonder and to the majesty and to the magnificence of life. It just keeps going.
All right. Now, one of the things you mentioned, and is this, and I'm going to ask this real quick, is this part of like that fifth realm thing like that? Because you mentioned about fairies, elves, dwarves, dragons, and other creatures that we believe are mythical.
Right.
So are they part of that fifth realm?
Not at this time. They are. Well, let me back up a little bit. In the second book, I was talking with Gaia, that's the embodiment of Earth, and I discovered that a lot of things that belonged on Earth initially either were taken, by other worlds before the Ashtar Command, said, hey, that we don't allow that anymore. Or we killed them off. We actually killed off the dragons 2 times in our history. The last dragons were killed in 420 A.D. So I thought, it doesn't seem right that things were taken from us. There are dragons on other worlds, and there are I believe there are fairies on other worlds, or the equivalent of fairies. But I knew that some fairies had been stolen, and when you steal a fairy, you're just condemning it to die, because they don't leave their gardens, at least not in the first book. Fairies stays in their garden. There's gardens all over Earth. There's not just one fairy garden. So I worked with Gaia and the fairies, and there's a method that the fairies have where they can restore things. It's the template that they use to take things into their gardens that we kill. The trees that we cut down, the animals that we kill are taken into the fairy gardens, and they live out their life there. And when it's time for them to die, they just lay down like a cow just lays down on the grass and turns into sparkles. And I was really happy to know that that happens. So anyway, with that template that the fairies gave me, and working with Gaia, we were able to bring back all the creatures that had been either killed, they died before their time, or were taken. So we were able to restore 4 million dragons to Earth. Now you're saying, well, where are they?
Yeah, a lot of people might ask that question.
So since we've killed them off twice, why would Gaia bring them back right to where we are again? Can you imagine the fun that our jet planes and stuff would have shooting down dragons? I just describing that, it gives me such horrible pictures that I don't like to even talk about it. We're not ready to be with the dragons again.
See, I mean, I have a fascination with like mythical creatures such as that. I mean, it interests me that there is this possibility that these beings, these creatures, can still exist, especially like in cryptozoology. There's Bigfoot, Loch Ness monster, and I believe those creatures do exist. Of course, I've had my own sighting in Bigfoot, but I've also heard that they could be interdimensional beings.
Right. Well, Gaia brought the dragons back to the 7th dimension. So we aren't there yet. We aren't on the 7th dimension. We're not physically there. Energetically, we are. And the fairies are a little off dimension from where we are, too. Like if we're on 5 and 6, they're on 6.5 or 5.5. They're just off from where we are. They can stick their heads in our dimension. They can stick their heads and their arms in. They can interact with us. Gaia told me there's over 25 million fairies. So, I mean,
that's a lot.
There's a lot, because here's the thing. You may have read stories about fairies that were bad fairies. There is no such thing. There's no such thing as a bad fairy, bad elf, bad dwarf. We see those kinds of things on TV, and that's just the mindset that we've had. But being in duality, we think if there's something good, there's got to be something bad. Yeah. Well, Gaia said without the fairies, Earth would be dead. the fairies support every living thing. The grasses, the plants, the trees, the rocks, the water. Their support, their joy, and their love, and the dancing and the singing, and their energetically, their thoughts. They support life, everything that helps us stay alive.
So they're basically the gardeners of Earth. The ones
they are
keep
earth
everything
keepers.
going.
Right, earth keepers. Them, and the elves and the dwarves. The elves are for the trees. The dwarves are for the minerals and the rocks and the crystals and things. And there are other creatures that are coming back. The centaurs, satyrs, winged horses, dragons. When we're in the 8th dimension, they'll all be back. They'll be interacting with us. We won't be killing each other. The dragons won't be eating people. The people won't be killing dragons. That's when like the golden age of Earth.
Yeah, because something like that, people might be like, "Oh shoot, dragons are around again. They're gonna breathe fire on us, kill us, destroy our cities," and we have to get away from that kind of thinking.
Right. Yes, we do. We really do. Here's the funny thing. So the dragons really wanted to coexist with us in the past. You know, the only time they ever ate a human was if they were really, really hungry and there wasn't anything else around. So, but that's none of that will happen when they come back, because they actually formed a dragon academy on another world. And the thing with the baby dragons, because I've seen the baby dragons, and they are just cute as can be, little lumps of dragon with little bumps when they're running down their back. Anyway, the thing about a baby dragon is when they get excited, they shoot sparks. They don't have a good control over their fire, and they shoot sparks out their nose, and anything near them tends to get burnt up. So.
Yeah.
So the school is trying to keep the babies. Yeah, try to keep the babies just to learn to control their fire, and learn how to get along with people, so that when they do come back, there really won't be any problems, because we won't be killing them and they won't be eating us. We won't have to kill anything to live on the 8th dimension. We can manifest our food. And it doesn't have to be something that we cause something else to die. So, yeah.
Now,
I like that.
Now you mentioned about food, like it. You mentioned everybody can manifest like whatever they want, so we won't have to worry about, like, right now in our dimension where we have to go out and work to buy food and stuff like that we can kind of manifest in the 10th dimension, correct?
Yeah, 8th dimension.
Or
there won't be any need for money. Money's going to phase out of existence gradually. I asked Tonas, that's the Astro commander that I met in that first book. I said, do you folks use money? He laughed. He said, no, what would we do with something like that, It's useless. Now, it's maybe that's a real stretch for people to even come to believe something like that. Maybe even harder than believe that they don't have to die. But really, that's the wave of the future. Really, if you think about it, we're using plastic right now. We're using
we're slowly getting away from the whole money thing.
Right. So think about what you won't have to have when you can instantly manifest. You won't have to have, huge manufacturing facilities. You won't have to have doctors and hospitals and prisons, because we won't be, getting sick. We won't be killing people. You won't have to have huge farms to raise all the food for all the rest of the country. And all Earth will be restored to its divine nature, its pristine nature. There won't be any pollution of any kind, water or the earth or the air. I like to, on my blog, on my website, joyelaine.com, I've got some really interesting blog articles about challenging people to dream big, because if we're creating our own reality, we need to start dreaming about it.
Mm-hmm. All right, I hate to cut you off, but we're at our first commercial break.
All
We'll
right.
be right back with more about the future of humanity and the Earth with my guest, Joy Elaine.
Right. Okay. So what? All right. Do you have a direction you want to go for this segment, or you just want to keep? I'm just keep meandering if you want. All right. That's fine. I'm okay with that.
Are you a ghost hunter or paranormal enthusiast and need
awake.
equipment to go out and investigate locations that have spirit activity? Well, GhostStop.com has all the
What's your
equipment
last
that you
name,
will
Phil?
need. They have a Boo Buddy ghost hunting
Here.
kit for
Okay.
$169.95, or how
Paranormal
about a Keep
Phil.
Calm and
Yeah.
Ghost Hunt T-shirt
Kind of
for
sounds
$19.95. Click on the banner ad at the top
gosh,
of the
everything
Talk of the Night website and get shopping today. GhostStop.com, your one-stop shop for all your ghost hunting needs. Do you have a paranormal team? Are you a small-time author? Do you have a radio show that you would like to promote? Is there anything that you would like to get the word out there about but don't have a big budget? Well, Talking the Night has an opportunity for you to sponsor the show without breaking your wallet. Contact the show at talkingthenight@outlook.com
Yeah.
or on the show's
Got a ring
website
to
or
it.
Facebook page for more details. Do you think you have a haunted or cursed object? Well, Nicole Gaspard does, and in her book Haunted Vessels
Yeah.
and Cursed Objects, she talks
My brother
about
has
her
seen one of
continued
those.
paranormal and
And
supernatural
he's the biggest
ghost
skeptic
encounters,
you would ever want to.
haunted dolls, and other
Ever
items
meet.
that are supposed to be haunted or cursed. Pick up your copy today on Amazon.com.
Yeah. Yeah, I could talk some more about fairies if you'd like to talk about fairies.
People gonna keep on talking about me. They don't understand the work that I do when they're not around me. They don't understand the life I chose, the nights alone, the highs and lows. They keep on talking about me, but they don't understand
what it feels like. Everything that's wrong always ending up to feel right. I know I've been gone, but my dreams.
Okay, and we are back with my guest Joy Elaine as we talk about the future of humanity and Earth. So before the commercial break, we were talking about the mythical creatures and such, and what are the roles of the fairies? What are they doing to help? And are they doing anything to help us reach that 8th dimension?
They, for humans, that's a fairly new part of their job description. Their traditional roles have been just supporting other growing things, the earth, the greeneries, the trees, the rocks, the animals. But they are able to turn their attention to us in a more positive fashion. I asked the fairy queen for the area where my house is in Bloomington. Julie is her name. And I said, how can I help the fairies? And she said, well, if you could just laugh for 5 minutes a day, I think that's what it is, 5 minutes. If you could just laugh for 5 minutes a day, that makes everything so much happier. And Of course, I said, well,
Yeah.
sometimes it's getting a human to laugh for 5 minutes is pretty challenging. She said, I would try. She said, we know when you're sad. We can feel that. So, it's if we're living a life full of joy, that helps us and it helps everybody around us. Really, I mean, I knew about the fairies when I was little. I grew up on a farm, and I spent my days as soon as it was possible to be barefoot. I was barefoot all day long. And I was running around on our farm on the dirt and climbing trees and just being a little wild girl. And when I was 8, we moved down the road about a mile to another farm. I didn't want to leave. I was devastated. I cried and I cried and I cried, and I couldn't explain to my mom and dad why I didn't want to leave. And it wasn't until 2014 when I started writing these books, I asked one of my angel guides, I said, is there a fairy I could talk to? And he said, well, why don't you speak with the fairy that you knew when you were a little girl? And as soon as I moved my energy body to her garden, and I actually struck up a conversation with her, and then I realized that was why I was so devastated when we moved, because we moved from her garden to another fairy's garden, and the fairies don't leave their garden at that time. Now they do; they are able to now. But I mean, she said she was sad when I left, and I was crying because I was just so happy to talk with her again, and I had just forgotten all about her.
Yeah.
See, when we're babies and when we're real little, that's when we're open to seeing the fairies and other kinds of creatures like that. And then, because our society doesn't really support that, you don't really go talking around to too many people about you saw a fairy, especially not when I was growing up.
Yeah, well, see, I have a theory about that, and a lot of people have been open to my thoughts on that, because I kind of, and this is how I explain it, that I gave it the term the Santa Claus effect, because when we're young, we're told, and for anybody listening, I did this last night, so I want to do this again. If you got small kids listening, have them go away from the radio. Don't listen. I don't want to destroy their perception of things. But what like I said, I coined the term the Santa Claus effect. So basically, when we're young, we're told Santa Claus is real, and as we grow older, we're told we find out that he's not real. The same thing goes with like spirits, fairies, stuff like that. When we're young, our minds are not corrupted by the everyday world as they are with us as adults. And as we get older, we're told it's just our imagination. It's just, it's not real, stuff like that.
Right.
And the ability to see this other world gets pushed from the front of our minds to the back of our minds.
Exactly. I really agree with that. Yeah. We're not encouraged to really, at least I wasn't, don't daydream, focus, learn, study here what you're supposed to learn. The leprechauns and dragons and those kinds of things, the leprechauns are in Ireland because people believe them there. Our country does not have a history like France and England and Germany and those countries have more of a belief in those quote mythical creatures because it just they were there and people experienced that. Now I think our country is just new, we just kind of thought that was a bunch of baloney, and so we didn't open our children's minds to that possibility. I think that's changing though, and I'm hoping that's changing because it's just bound to be as we're raising higher and higher. Our vibrations are rising. We're going to be able to see things like we haven't been able to see before. So there are more people, they're a little off dimension. You mentioned the Loch Ness monster. They really there is more than one. There's about 30 of them.
Oh yeah,
And I said, well,
there's Champ and Lake Champlain, Loch Ness monster, Nessie. There's all kinds of them.
So, how come we can't find them? Well, Osiris told me, well, that's because they can shift off dimension. I was privileged to actually take a boat ride on the Loch Ness, and the guy on the boat said, we've got this real sophisticated sonar equipment, and we know approximately that there's, I forget how many, like 20,000 pounds of fish that disappear, in just a short period of time. Where are the fish going? Well, it's, the Nessie, and there's about 30 of them, at least 30, those Sears told me in that lock, that they shift off dimension. Wow. when people are trying to find them, and so they don't see them. Same thing with Bigfoot; they can shift in the dimensions. So
yeah, now there are people that believe they're interdimensional creatures and stuff like that, but there's also been the belief that Nessie, there's like a underwater cave that goes out into the ocean, and that's where they could be hiding. But I kind of tend to think more towards the interdimensional creature.
Yeah, that's what I was told anyway. So you're talking about. Let's talk a little bit about Osiris.
Yeah.
Do you know the Egyptian god that I'm referring to? We call him a god.
Mm-hmm.
You sometimes see him as green. He's actually a real bright teal color. And Isis, or some people call her Isis, and Hathor, and then Horus. He was pictured with an hawk's head, and Tot was pictured with as an ibis. Well, they were, they're on the council that we form in the second book, along with people like John Kennedy and Abraham Lincoln and Mark Antony and Cleopatra and Caesar and Hiawatha and some Native Americans on the 10th dimension, the moon. And so why I was wondering why Osiris, why Isis? Well, they were the first two beings to manifest into our universe. Actually, Tot, the Egyptian god of wisdom, Osiris joked. He said, "Well, Tot poked a hole in, and then we followed him in." So they were, we thought they were gods because they have those abilities of non-dual individuals. They can appear and disappear. They can change their appearance. They are, they don't experience death. Their batteries kind of run down here on Earth, so they have to leave every once in a while to get charged up because we're a dual world. But they're on the council, and they're considered, Osiris is the patriarch of our universe, and Isis is the matriarch. So, we got some really higher ups that I have really privileged to be able to interact and to speak with. Osiris, they love to joke around. We have a good time on this council, especially when we met. I met a genie in the first book, and his name is Laponi, and he wasn't incarnated on Earth at one time, but he said kind of got to be not as popular for genies to be on Earth. So he was when I met him, he's on an Andromeda, and I've seen him. He is blue. He's had a great smile. He has got a short curly brown hair and wears a gold earring. Of course, he could look any way he wants, but
yeah,
it's really true about.
Yeah, if we can manifest anything we want, why would you want to look blue?
Well, there are green genies too. I'm sure he can change his color, but I think that's just what they prefer.
Okay.
Isis is kind of a blue color too, and Osiris is a teal color. They can be any color. It could be purple and with polka dots if they wanted, but I think that's the color that they find most pleasing. So I really enjoy Laponi. I asked him what about those Aladdin lamps? He said, "Oh, that's a myth. They don't ever really catch a genie. But
Okay,
you know
so
what,
the genie is basically real in this dimension, but the lamps are mythical.
yeah,
I mean,
the lamps are mythical.
I believe in it. I'm just saying that I kind of find that a little hilarious.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you know what? You know why genies were created? They actually were slaves. There were people in other universes capable of creating a genie, and there's about 89,000 of them. That's been outlawed though. The galactic councils have outlawed creating genies, and that's been that way for, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of years. But Laponi was created to be a babysitter for this man's son, to entertain him, with manifesting and keeping him entertained. And then when the little boy grew up, Laponi said, well, he said, I got a life. And the way he got freed, you know how he got free? Because he was a slave, he was owned. He gave his master everything that man wanted, which proved to be his downfall.
Yeah,
and then Laponi.
That's in almost like our dimension today, and then he ascended to that higher dimension.
Laponi was created in a dual universe. So, but this man had abilities that were, it's hard for me to imagine being able to create another being. Of course, he didn't have anything to do with putting a soul in the being. That's God does that. When a being is created and there's a soul for it, then the soul enters the body. But Laponi was created. I asked him how old he was. Okay, He had to stop and think about it for a little bit. He said, "Okay, I think it's quat. In other words, quattro decillion. So that is 9 and 4 followed by 45 zeros.
That's a lot of...
That's a lot of years. He's the first genie ever created. But like I said, he was created to be a slave. Now, he didn't abuse his master. He just gave him everything he wanted, and the master had some appetites that were obviously not too healthy. And once he was free, he couldn't, that was the only way he could be free when the owner died. And a lot of times when that happens, someone else is ready to snap the genie up because you had a slave for life.
Yeah.
So it was really a privilege to be able to offer some opportunities for genies, and that became known throughout. So most of them, I think, are free now, and they are part of the Joy Council.
Okay, so basically, the genies, almost like what are predicted, not predicted. I'm trying to think of the word. Kind of described in like Aladdin and stuff like that. They were slaves to their master, and the only way they could be freed was basically
when the master died.
Master died, or they were set free.
Yeah, well, I don't imagine that if you created a genie, you weren't going to let it go. I mean, it was kind of like our form of slavery.
Yeah.
So, but he's wonderful. I really enjoy working with him. He's got quite a sense of humor.
Yeah. Now, this is the let's get into this real quick. Are there any other not creatures, but ancient astronaut theories believe are different? I'm trying to think of how to word this. But like you talked about the Egyptians with the gods and stuff like that.
Right.
The gods for maybe different other belief systems, like the Native Americans and stuff like that. Or
how about Thor?
Stuff and stuff like that. Yeah, I didn't think about that. I had it down and I just didn't think about it. But
You want to talk about
stuff
Thor?
like that, yeah.
Well, I talked with Thor. I've seen him. He's the Thor that on the movie that we have is a puny guy compared to Thor. Of course, came from a non-dual world, so he can be any size he wanted to be. But he's about the version that I saw would probably be about 11 or 12 feet, and his legs look like tree trunks. I mean, he's just a huge, huge, huge man. So he told me that he came from the Kyla system, which is another, in another universe. And he came to Earth. He was along with like Rama and Shiva and a lot of the Hindu gods. He came here back in the ancient times to assist humans. It's a myth that he used that hammer to kill people. Yeah. That hammer was like, hey, listen up. He said the Norse people were really warlike, and they were looking for a leader, and he used that hammer as a kind of a demonstration of, because he could throw it and it would come back to him, and it'd make us sound like thunder. He was a non-dual being, so he would appear as a god, and he was just trying to get him on the straight and narrow, to straighten up, not to kill people.
Yeah, because the Norse people were warlike Viking civilization.
Yeah.
So
right. So what happened in Thor's case? I don't know the exact details of it, but I do know with like Rama and Shiva and some of the Hindu gods. One of the rules that the galactic councils are very, very strict about is that you can't advance a species beyond its readiness. I think you probably would even find that in Star Trek and some of those movies.
Oh yeah.
You can't just come down here and say, "Hey, here's all the goodies, here's all the secrets." That's strictly forbidden. So when those individuals, when Thor and Rama and Shiva and those were trying to help humanity, they overstepped a little bit, and they got their proverbial hand slapped, and they were forbidden from doing it, and they were banished. Most of them are living in Agartha, and that's a city in the center of the earth.
Okay, so so there's basically like I want to say command, but not the community that thing, or shoot, I've drawn a blank, but basically up there in the 8th dimension, those ones that you just talked about are in the center of our Earth, basically, an advantage to that.
Right. Well, they can move out to other dimensions, but they are not allowed to be on Earth to interact with humans. There's I don't know, at least 9 or 10 galactic councils of light that I know of that are overseeing Earth. There's the Andromedan Earth Ascension Council, and there's several others that I've even forgotten the names of. But the rules are very strict. My older son was about 40 or 41. I was telling him about some of the things that are going on. He said, "Well, Mom, why can't the Ashtar clan just come down and fix everything? Just say shape up, And I said, "Well, they can't. It's forbidden. We're a free will planet. We get to choose. We live here. We get to choose what we want for our future." And that's one of the things I really hope that people will either read some of the articles I have on my blog, or they will read the books, because once you see the big picture, you get really excited about it. You can feel like you're a part of something bigger rather than just getting up, going to work, coming home, watching TV, and going to bed. I think it gave me hope when I learned about what's, this bigger vision for Earth and our importance and where we're going. It's more than anybody's ever dreamed of.
Yeah. So now, like people believe in like the Greys, reptilians. Shoot, I'm trying to think of the Anunnaki, stuff like that. Are those part of the council, or?
No, no, no. We're only working with non-dual individuals, and all those, the Anunnaki, the Greys, and the reptilian species, and not referring to the dragons, although there are some dragons that are of that adversarial nature. No, I'm not working with any one of those kinds of beings. Although I do encounter them in about starting to get hints of them in book 3, and then definitely in book 4 and 5 and 6. There is a species. I don't really want to talk about them too much. There's quite a bit of information in my books, but I want to focus on the more positive things.
Yeah. There's
a species that lives on Earth. Many of them live underground, and they can appear as human. Many of them in positions of power. I don't know of any, I'm not going to talk about any of our leaders because I don't know about any of that stuff, but I know that this race was here before humans. They were here like 11 million years before humans were created. And they don't like us. We are cluttering up their planet.
Yeah.
They just assume we were all dead. But they've been, the practices that they use are very subtle. Immunizations are one of them. Genetic manipulation, with early humans. So it's not all sweetness and light like we'd like it to be, but everything will work out. I mean, all the paths lead to the same destination. And that's remembering our true nature, which is love.
Now, before we go into the break at the top of the hour, I wanted to get into the difference between or a little bit about what the Ashtar command is.
Okay, so imagine. Let me describe the spaceships. I've seen one. I've seen the inside of one of them. The room that I was in was about 30 feet long, and it was probably 15 feet high. And if you imagine the most complicated airplane panel that you can ever possibly imagine, and then make it even more intricate, that's what this whole wall of like lights and all kinds of knobs and instruments and things were. And there was a man standing with a clipboard in front of it, looking at, just watching it. And it was one of the ships that is used to monitor, to track people. And I'm one of the people that they're tracking so they can keep me safe. But Tonos's ship, that's the Ashtar commander that I met in the first book, Path of Sweetness. The name of his ship is Inishimura in his language. And that means the night sky.
Okay.
Now, the room I manifested in was a huge, just really basically empty room, except there was this huge window to look out and see the Earth and the stars. And I asked him recently, I said, well, what about furniture? And he laughed. He said, well, that would just get in the way, It's not like Star Trek where you're on the bridge and you got all the, of course they could manifest a chair if they want to sit down.
Yeah.
But I haven't really gone through the rest of the ship. Most of my interactions are just, talking with him and finding out things, at least in that first book. So, but he had said he had 900 people, 900 on his ship, and we had a party. At the end of that first book, Path of Sweetness, we had a party where we ended up 20,000 people from different non-dual worlds came to learn about Earth. And he had to make the ship 5 times bigger. And guess how he did that?
Okay. How did he basically turn that size of ship into something much larger to accommodate?
He just thought it. He just thought it bigger.
Yeah, I should have saw that one coming. All right. Well, we're at the top of the hour. We'll be right back with my guest, Joy Elaine, as we talk about the future of humanity and Earth. And we'll take phone calls and questions. We'll be right back.
right, good. All right.
Do you have
I
a
get
talk radio,
Christian.
Facebook Live,
I'm getting
or
Christian
YouTube
right
show
now.
and would like guests for your show but don't know where to go to get them? Well, go to radioguestlist.com and sign up today. They have all different experts in
Oh,
different
ouch,
fields,
that would
and
be
you can find the
uncomfortable.
ones that are just
Yeah.
right for your show. That's radioguestlist.com. Sign up today. It's
So what's
free.
your day job?
If you like finding out about
Oh.
different things in the paranormal
Sounds
field,
pretty
such
challenging.
as ghost stories, haunted locations, UFOs, cryptozoology, and much more, well, check out Into the Paranormal on YouTube,
Right,
and be sure
yeah.
to subscribe to the channel.
Good. I'm glad you're
Videos are
thinking about
posted
that.
once a week. Be sure to check out the show's website at talkingthenight.weebly.com for some great content such as Story of the Day, This Day in History, and much more. Also, if you missed the show, check out the show's archive page under the radio show tab where you can find all the shows listed. And be sure to sign up for the Talk in the Night newsletter.
Yeah. Well, everything you do really, if you're doing it to the best of your ability and having fun and focusing on being the best person,
These
that helps
roads
everybody.
intersect, on each one I reflect. These lines write my story. These places change me, each one replacing. Like night into morning, I miss the opening.
To call into the show, Skype Talk in the Night, or by phone at 817-717-5561. And now, back to Talk in the Night with your host, Paranormal Phil. Okay, and we are back with my guest, Joy Elaine, as we talk about the future of humanity and Earth. And the phone lines are open. If you have a question for my guest, feel free to call in. Or on Spreaker, there is a little chat room. If you got any questions for my guest and do not want to call, feel free to pop in the chat, ask the question in there. I'll relay the message for you. All right. So we were talking about the Ashtar command beforehand, before the break, and now.
So, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, now is the Ashtar command and this committee thing two separate things?
The Galactic Councils of Light, yes,
Galactic.
are different. Yeah, from the Ashtar Command. And then the Joy Council is what happens in Book 2. After we had that great party and we did all this wonderful work in the first book, I didn't want it to end. I wanted to be able to keep working with these wonderful people to keep assisting Earth. So we formed this, like I said, this Joy Council. It's Laponi, the genie that I met in Book 1. He built this crystalline structure on the 10th dimension of the moon, and then he built another building in the center of the Earth. And we send out transmissions from there. So the cool thing you can do, and it's described in each of my books, described how you can join in the work that we're doing, and you can you'll actually be sending gifts to yourself and to the Earth, because as I mentioned earlier, we get to vote. We're creating our reality. The Ashtar Command, cannot come down and fix everything like my son said. Why don't they do that? We got free will. It's our decision. It's our choice. It's our privilege to start claiming what we choose for Earth.
Okay. Now are like these beings? Are they what we would call something like extraterrestrials or aliens?
Well, I suppose you could call him that. I mean, I've seen Tonos. He looks like a human being, although he was born in Lyra, which is one of the non-dual planets in our universe. Our universe is about half and half. Half non-dual and half dual planets. So Sirius, Arcturus, Lyra, and Andromeda are non-dual worlds for sure. I've heard about the Anunnaki. They imagine like a grasshopper standing on its hind legs. I've not seen them. They're dual. They're a dual race, and they do exist. Mm-hmm. We did some work. We did some work in one of the books. I forget which one it is, because they would come to Earth about every 7,000 years ago or so. That's when their planet would move close to ours, just a little off dimension from ours, so people didn't see them. Mm-hmm. But they would wreak havoc here, and we did some work to prevent that from happening this go round. So I've seen some of the other races. I saw there's a little woman that I met in book 2. She looked like a little girl. She's probably 3 feet tall, beautiful face. Have you seen the pictures of the children with the big eyes? You know what I'm talking about? That's what her eyes look like. And her name is Zasit, and she has a fishtail. But she was able to walk upright. I don't know how she managed it, but she was able to walk, and most of her world is water. So, and she's in a different universe. She's not in this universe. So there are, but the humanoid form is really the most popular form. I mean, you see, you watch the movies on TV where all these really fantastical creatures, that are aliens. And it's possible that those exist. I've never seen anything like that. I've seen a 2-headed person. I've seen a being that looked like a lion, had a lion's head, standing upright. Mm-hmm. So I've been told that the human form with the 2 arms, 2 legs, the head, the body is very pleasing, and it's one that's used frequently in all of creation. So I don't know. What do you think of aliens? I don't even think of them that way.
Okay. Because
they're just people to me.
The reason why I'm asking this question is because I got a question in the chat here. About aliens and why they are using our DNA to build their own self to make half-breeds such as star childs, hybrids, and stuff like that.
Okay, so you want to get into the creation?
Yeah.
Well, okay, let me just explain. This is what I've been told. I've been told by these masters who don't lie. So you can take it or you can leave it. So there were a few dual races who thousands of years ago, probably more than 100,000 years ago. They maybe back even the millions, because that's when the other species were here. They wanted beings that would work for them and mine gold and mine crystals. Okay, they didn't want to have to do that kind of work. So they created really, 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 really early humans, probably even before Neanderthals. And those are like disposable things. They didn't have souls. There was not enough genetic material in those bodies that they made to even have a soul. And they were just used. They didn't live very long. They had kind of a human form, but when they died, they were just burned, and they weren't of any importance other than to just be slaves and dig things. Yeah. Well, then, as time went on, the forms got a little bit better, and then eventually, as the species progressed, other worlds got involved, non-dual worlds who wanted to help humans, this early humans. So you had the non-dual worlds and you had the dual worlds, and they each had their agendas. Make slaves or emancipate them. And eventually, those early humans had enough genetic material from all the tinkering that had been done that they were able to have souls. Now, I'm not talking about Neanderthals. It would be even after the Neanderthals that they had souls. And then that was when it was declared hands off. All those races had to leave. Okay, you can't mess with humans. Except here's the loophole. Some of those races, like the Pleiadians, they have early humans had their genetics. So, and this is what Tonos told me. He said the human had to have a certain percentage of genetics before they would be allowed to be abducted or manipulated. It sounds gruesome, doesn't it?
Yeah. There are a lot of people out there that look
have
at
experienced that.
The probing. You want to look at it that way. The prodding, the testing, the creating like hybrids and stuff like that.
Right. Well, they wanted to see how their species was coming along. I guess I don't really know the agendas that they had, but they were just kind of checking up on, seeing what happened. Now, the good news is, as we evolve more and more and more, those dual genetics will start to become dormant, and that just won't happen eventually. The abductions will cease, and so that's one of the things that the Ashtar Command does. They monitor to make sure that the rules are being followed about who can be taken. They would prefer not to have that happen at all, but that's just the way the Galactic Council is ruled, because we have all these mixed genetics.
Now,
so
with like all these UFO sightings and stuff like these, or these beings, is that part of the Ashtar Command that's actually here to protect the human race, to help us ascend to that 8th dimension?
Well, let me put it this way. I went to an expo, and there was this another vendor there who had all these little, like, colored dots, and they were supposed to be, like, the different like Kutumi and some of the other masters in their ships. And a lot of them, when I telepathically showed that to Tony, he said a lot of them are Ashtar Command ships. But, they generally don't want to be seen.
Yeah.
They're kind of staying hidden, but humans, he said, humans told us that are really curious, and they're really good at looking. So if you see this, the ships that are coming down blatantly, those are not Ashtar Command.
Okay.
Yeah, no, those are aliens or ETs or whatever you want to call them.
Yeah, the Greys, the Anunnaki, stuff like that.
Yeah. Not the Anunnaki. They were not due for several thousand years, and we put a stop to that. Yeah. But there's other races. They're curious. Earth is, like I say, Earth is the happening place. They want to see what's happening here. So.
Yeah. Now, another question in the chat. What do they use to power their ships for the Astral Command?
It's an advanced form of the things that Tesla had. It's light propulsion. Propulsion.
Yeah, because Tesla was pretty much, I believe, killed off for what he had discovered or was given that knowledge and everything like that, and the others that did not want that ability to get out there pretty much got rid of it.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. One of the good things that we're doing is, see this council that I'm talking about in Book 2? We're doing a lot of things to help, like things like free energy, to help, GMOs are not a good thing, to help wake people up to making higher choices in their lives. If you don't buy a product that has GMOs in it, then you're not supporting that industry, and organic foods and those kind of things. So we're sending transmissions that support that kind of work. There is a form of free energy that that I'm encouraging scientists to work on. I can't, you know, they.
Yeah, we don't want to get too much into it. We want to let people read about it in the book.
Right. Yeah, and I can't, you know, I can't just say, they won't just tell me, here's the answers.
Yeah.
I just got to keep asking questions, and if I get enough questions right, then I get something from them. You know, it's not like they're going to say, well, the butler did it in the pantry with a candlestick.
Yeah. It's just not going to happen that way.
Right, yep.
Now, second part to that question that I had in the chat room is, can the Astro Command travel through time back and forth
Yes.
to the past or the future?
Yes, and I can too. See, that's another thing with the Serenity work, the Serenity Vibration Healing. We do work in the past, and I see things from the future, so that because I've gotten notice of some things that were not so good that were going to happen, and then we were able to fix that. Or when you change something in the past, here's a really interesting thing. There have been some really calamitous things that have happened, but if you go back and you fix it so that it doesn't happen, and I'm not necessarily talking about Earth, I'm talking about experiences in some of the other universes that we have, because there are some universes that are completely at war right now.
Yeah.
So Earth is not the only place where there's fighting going on. When you change in the past, then all the people that I'm working with, nobody remembers what happened. They don't remember the old story at all. And see, I'm just describing kind of plagued with that because I remember the old story. But let me get back to that thing about war.
Yeah.
So the good news is, remember I told you that there were 47 universes?
Yes.
Okay. So when the Joy Council work started in Book 2, the beginning of Book 2, Blossoming of Love, there was no universe that was completely non-dual. Now, because of the work that we have been sending out from the Joy Council, and it's not just me and 100 or so people around the main table, there are millions of people in this, it's like a big wagon wheel. And in the rooms around the main room, there are millions of people that are supporting this work. So the transmissions that we send out from that council are very, very graceful and powerful. All right?
Yeah.
So at
is
this
it like
point...
I was going to real quick ask, is it like almost like a radio signal or some kind of transmission?
Right. There's
like
a big crystal that sits in the table, in the center of the table, and we focus our thoughts on it and send like beams out to the Earth or to the other universes. All right. Mm-hmm. It's always, and the work is always calibrated so that it's appropriate for every world and every universe. Because there's so many different species, you know, stuff that would be appropriate for Earth wouldn't be appropriate for, say, the world of Galna in another dimension. That's an entirely male planet, by the way. There is a universe that's entirely feminine, no males at all in it.
Okay.
But anyway, let me get back. There are 13 universes that are non-dual. From none to 13. I think that's really, really remarkable. And here's the other really cool thing. 3 entire universes have ascended into the 5th realm. That's where we're all going to end up.
Okay. Now,
every world, every sentient being, remember I told you that that's where everybody ends up in the 5th realm. You could think of it as heaven. Well, 3 universes have already gotten there. So in about 350 years, that's the projected time length for everybody to be in the 5th realm, including Earth.
Yeah, that's kind of one of the questions I had on my list to ask you is how long before we reach that 5th realm and stuff like that?
Well, the 5th realm is not that long. I mean, that could be 3 or 4 years for me. That
dimension,
could be,
I mean.
Yeah, we're talking about the 8th dimension.
Yeah, that's what I don't know why I said the 5th realm. I meant the 8th dimension. I'm sorry. Okay,
well, the 8th dimension. I'm hoping for me, it's the next 5 years. It could be 10 years or 20 years for most people, or it could be 100 years for some people.
No,
But
I
he
meant
is
like
different.
the whole Earth. Not
Okay,
just
350
individual.
years. 350 years into the fifth realm. They call it the culminative.
Okay, so
if
that's
you look
when
at- if you look at
everybody
the-
is expected to be in
Right.
that eighth
Everybody.
dimension.
Not just Earth, every world, every universe. Every
Okay.
world, every universe ascended into that. And that's what is pictured on the cover of my third book, which is called A Wish is Granted.
All right. Now, are there different species or like the greys, the reptilians, and stuff like that? As far as extraterrestrials, are there different species such as that for the Ashtar command?
No, they're all non-dual.
Okay, so
So the reptilians and the greys and all those beings, those are dual
Okay.
nature, just like humans.
all right. Yeah, just because I had a question, how many alien species are out there, which I've never gotten that answer. So I don't know.
There's. I don't see how you could answer it because there's millions of worlds. I mean, in
Yeah.
one universe, there could be billions of worlds.
Yeah. But we pretty much, like alien species, we know are the Greys, the Anunnaki, reptilians, and more some of the common ones that have visited here a long time ago.
Right. Yeah.
Or the
Well,
ones that do visit here, like the Greys and stuff like that.
Yeah. I really don't know anything about the greys. I know about the reptilians. That's the race that's living here. That wishes we weren't.
Yeah.
And of course, just like us, they're ones that are more enlightened, and then there's ones that are many of them that are not enlightened. I actually met one of them. He only showed me his eye. He was one of the ones that you would consider like a Jesus in their species. That would what he would be. And he bent down and he showed me his eye, and it was a huge, vivid emerald green with a black slit, vertical slit in the middle of it.
Mm-hmm.
In their natural form, they look kind of like alligators, but they've trained themselves to walk upright. And the purebreds can appear as humans.
Yeah.
So they prefer to live underground, and they're telepathic. So, and their minds never stop working. I mean, compared to a really busy human mind, would look like it would be asleep compared to they call themselves a chew.
Yeah.
That's the name of their species. And it's been eye-opening for me. Sometimes I wish I hadn't had my eyes opened in that regard, but it'll all come out. It'll all work out.
Yeah.
We're all going to evolve to where we will be at peace with each other. So
now,
that's
you mentioned about everybody at peace with each other and stuff like that once we reach that eighth dimension.
Right.
Now, going back to the aliens a little bit here, will they ever reach that eighth dimension? Like the Greys, the reptilians?
I'm
or
sure
are
they will,
just
because
gonna-
that's just part of the plan. Everybody has that opportunity to reach for the higher thought, to do the thing that they know is quote the right thing to do, whatever that is for them.
Mhm.
One of the challenges right now is that there are individuals that have no souls, and they look just like a regular person. They're not restricted to any race. They can be any of the races that we have, and they're called tribals. And they share Gia's soul. They're part of like the earth. They share her soul. So the challenge we've had is assisting them to have enough genetic material to host a soul, so that they can ascend with us. They can move into these higher dimensions. Because unless we can somehow, I think we're going to be able to do that, because we've been able to do that several times now to uplift enough of them, 20,000 at one time and 80,000 another time, to to be able to allow them to have a soul. I mean, it's not, like I said, it's not restricted to just blacks or just whites or just Orientals. It can be tribal, can be of any race, look like a regular person. They just don't have a soul. I mean, they're not. It's not to say that they're demons or they're bad people. They're just walking around without a soul and living their lives, and they have no idea that they don't have one. But I think we're going to be able to. The plan is to somehow assist everybody to have one of those. I mean, they're not. It's not like a huge portion of the population, but it is. It is an issue.
Okay.
I hope I didn't.
Sorry. Now, I had a question. Again, I'm getting questions in the chat. So anybody listening to the show, if you want to pop in the chat, feel free to pop in there, ask me a question. I'll relay it to my guest. Now, he asked, can aliens move objects with their minds like telekinesis? But we're going to go a little bit different with that question as far as, like, the alien races we know, and you already kind of answered the question earlier with the Ashtar command and stuff like that, being able to create objects by thinking of it and stuff like that. But can the Ashtar command do the same thing?
Sure, they can do teleporting and bilocating. And Tona said, if he wants to move out of the ship, all he has to do is just create a bubble of air around him and just step outside the ship. So, every non-dual race has those abilities of teleporting from one location to the other, of mental telepathy. Really, most of the communication in a non-dual world is not verbal at all. I mean, they talk for me, but it takes them, 10 minutes to explain something that a human could explain in, 50 seconds. But telepathy is a really pure form, and I've experienced it. You just get this wonderful download. You get the whole picture. You don't get any lies. You don't get any mistruths. There's no distortions in telepathy. It's just like, bam, there you have it. So it's really much more advanced in the way we speak. And I know I've experienced telepathy in this realm, in this dimension, so I know that it's possible. I can't, it's like saying, when you're talking about all the different races, imagine how many billions of them there are. It's kind of like a car. Is it a good car or a bad car? I don't know. I mean, if they're an alien race and they're non-dual, then they have all those abilities. Okay. And it's possible, even if they are a dual race, if they've evolved enough to where they are. I mean, we're a dual race, and some of us can do those things already.
Yeah. Right.
Of moving things with our minds. Well, imagine as we elevate more and more and more, that's going to be more common.
Okay. So when we come back from this final commercial break, I wanted to get into talking about the different books and see if you wanted to read a couple of passages from those books. So we'll be right back. We'll be right back with my guest, Joy Elaine, as we talk about the future of Earth and humanity.
I've thrown out all the photographs. They just don't feel the
Sure.
same.
Fine, no problem.
And I screen your call.
Right, no problem. I don't mind.
'Cause we
No
don't
no
talk
no foul.
anymore. Clean
I'm going to read this.
my house and find
I don't remember. I'm just kind of flowing in the flow, and I don't even remember what I was talking about at this point. But it's a short passage. I'm just going to read a short passage from what the Dragon King wanted to tell me about a little bit of the history of dragons. So.
When you go to findingmargaret.com and mention Talking the Night, you can purchase a signed copy of the book Finding Margaret for just $10. Go to findingmargaret.com and send an email saying you heard about the book on Talking the Night and get your copy today. Just for Talking the Night listeners, go to joyelaine.com and get a free signed copy of Book 1, Path of Sweetness. To get to Joy's website, just click on the banner ad on the Talking the Night website. To purchase a signed copy of the CD Red Omen at 10% off, mention Talking the Night. With this purchase, you will get a free download of the Red Omen album and one of any other of Ed's album downloads, plus a special link to watch the new Red Omen video for a limited time. It's not available anywhere. Email Michael at mtsmanagementgroup.com to take advantage of this deal.
Alrighty. So it'll probably be about 3 hours before I'll be able to get to sleep. I get too hyped up doing this too late at night.
Again, something I know all too well, and I fear I might have broken a promise I made to myself. Seems I can hang over the edge and keep my feet
Oh
down on
no.
the floor.
Well, at least I don't have to get up that early, thank God.
Cause my hands against the door.
To call into the show, Skype Talking the Night, or by phone at 817-717-5561. And now, back to Talking the Night with your host, Paranormal Phil. Okay, and we are back with my guest, Joy Elaine, as we talk about the future of humanity and the earth. The phone lines are open. The chat room is open. So if you got any questions and don't want to call in, feel free to pop in the chat. Ask the question. I'll relay the message to my guest. So we were talking about, before the break, about going over some of the books and stuff like that. And you wanted to read a short passage from one of the books. Which book was that again?
I'm going to read from the third book, which is called A Wish is Granted. And I was talking with Woonfred. He's the Dragon King. And this is, I asked him about, was there any dragons in the United States at that time? Now, this would have been in 2014, 2015. Mm-hmm. He says there weren't any at that time, but if I would like to invite him to visit, they'd check us out. He said they came back mostly to England, Ireland, and Germany because those were the countries where they began. Mm-hmm. But remember, I told you earlier in this broadcast that we had restored like 4 million dragons to the seventh dimension above Earth. So I asked him. He asked me if I wanted to hear the story of dragons, and I said I'd love to hear that. So here's what Woonfred told me. I'm quoting from the book.
All right.
There were 2 annihilations of dragons. The first dragons, created by the ancient Academy initiates. Let me back up just a minute. People before humans started having souls, thousands, 100,000 of years ago. People from non-dual worlds came here to study in academies. They wanted to experience what living on Earth was like. They wanted to learn how to do things in duality. Remember, on non-duality, they just thought something into existence. Yeah. So part of their homework was to create a creature, a new kind of creature. And usually what they did was they took something on their home world and they just tweaked it a little bit. So dragons were actually created by those initiates. And I'm not saying that there aren't dragons in other worlds, because there are, but they actually did have like fire-breathing contests to see whose dragon could breathe fire the farthest. Okay? Doesn't that sound like a bunch of kids?
Yeah.
Teenagers away from home, and they're going
to be kind of fun.
Yeah, see what kind of dragon they could make. So, anyway, back to the story here. The first dragons created by the ancient Academy initiates were free to live on the land and in the air, and they lived for many millions of years. So we're talking a long time ago. All right. They were part of the earth, and they were kindly to people if they were not hungry. They could even be brought into service to assist. If there were those who were being bothered, the kindly dragons sometimes helped the humans who were victims by driving away those who were less kindly. Some dragons were conscripted into service in order to drive humans to their knees. They were used inappropriately. Remember, I told you that if you were able to steal a dragon's egg and raise a baby dragon, you had a dragon under your control. You could just get about anything. Right?
Yeah, basically like the genie thing.
Right. Yep. And, that's why you'd see dragons sitting on a pile of gold, not because dragons were interested in gold, but because the person that had captured them or had them captive was using them to get gold. All right, so back to the story. Woonford said the dragons were used inappropriately. The dragon's heart is pure unless he is hungry. So now remember, when they come back, we're not going to have that kind of issue. But anyway, continue with the story. So I agreed that it would not be good to be around a hungry dragon. And then I wanted to know what happened after people killed all those dragons. Woonford says, there was a cave with a golden pearl, which was the last dragon egg. It was held in a sacred nest of energy that kept it from being destroyed or awakened from within. A wizard knew of this egg and awakened it. That dragon grew and called forth with the breath of fire all those to rise again. Are you wondering who the dragon was who was awakened? And then I asked him, I said, would it have been you? And then he laughed and he said, it would.
Sorry. Stupid phone.
Oh, okay. So then I said, who saved the egg? And then Woonford said, it was saved for the future by someone of kindness who is in this room. Will you give us your name? And that was when Osiris spoke up to say and admit that he is a romantic and the dragons are beautiful. And he said it was very special for him when Woonford was added to our council, for he has had my protection. And then I thanked him for saving Woonford because I was really glad that he was on our council too.
Okay, so he pretty much found that last dragon and pretty much
saved him,
raised it, and protected it and everything like that.
Yeah, but Woonford was killed, but then we brought him back. So, I mean, it's like, and this story, of course, has all been changed. I mean, we're rewriting the stories as we go. So, for now, that's what I've written, but it'll be different in the future because that's the modality that we use for Serenity Vibration Healing. You can change the past, and then you change the future. By the way, it is possible to meet yourself in the past. I've done that. I've gone back and met myself and given myself some words of wisdom.
Now, that kind of actually brings up an interesting question. It like the whole Back to the Future thing.
Right.
Could that cause problems meeting yourself?
Well, it's not like the whole, step on a butterfly in the past and the world is catastrophically changed. But what could happen is I have to be careful, and I've put some work in place, some parameters in place with my Serenity work so that I don't go back and change my life so that I don't meet Tonos or I don't meet the dragons or I don't meet these significant people that I'm working with to help us bring about changes. So there are safety measures that I've put in place. But I've taken, for example, Commander Ashtar back several million years in the past to meet himself in the past, to give himself in the past some information about that would be helpful for now. So, like again, mostly this is for other universes. I've really been very careful about anything having to do with Earth and just been sending more general transmissions to just uplift us. I'm not a meddler, but I am trying to assist us.
Now, can we go into the past of, or once we ascend or whatever, can we go into the past of like these other worlds, these dimensions and stuff like that?
Well, remember I told you in the fifth realm you get a chance to experience everything that you didn't while you were alive?
Yeah.
I suppose, see, the thing is, if you don't know about something, how do you know to experience it? But of course, everybody will be there with us when we're all finally there, so we can chat with, say, hey, somebody from another world and find out what their lives were like, and then experience that too. So we'll all have a chance to just, like the biggest, hugest, most fun networking kind of thing that you can ever imagine. I think it's going to be great, but I'm not in a hurry to get there. I'm anxious to just have my perpetually regenerating, beautiful 23-year-old body. I've seen that in the future.
All right. Now, what are some of the other books that you got in the series?
Okay, so the first book, and the best way, my website is joyelaine.com, but there's a little bit of a glitch right now with ordering books from my site. I may be able to fix it in the morning. The publishing company that was publishing my books was bought by Amazon, and I think there's a link broken or somewhere. But my books are on Amazon, so you can order them through Amazon, and probably in a couple of days you'll be able to order from my website, Joy Elaine. In the meantime, I hope you look at my blog, because there's some great work there that assists you with self-love and finding out more about the dragons and the fairies and King Arthur and Cleopatra and all kinds of people that are on our council. So first book, Path of Sweetness. Second book, Blossoming of Love. Third book, A Wish is Granted. Fourth book, Paths of Freedom, and in that one there's a lot of, we encounter an occultist who was decided that he wanted to control all the universes, and he was on his way to doing it. So it was really, just describing a really scary experience for me.
Yeah, rather than having us ascend to that eighth dimension, he wanted to control that and make it.
He wanted to be the ruler.
Yeah,
he wanted to be the ruler of everything. Yeah, and that was a pretty frightening experience.
Yeah.
And book 5 is called Return of Dragons, and it's the picture on that cover is the dragon prince, Prince Joya, who was born Mother's Day of 2015. And book 6 is called Spaceship Earth, Return of the Star Tribes. So 1 is Path of Sweetness, Blossoming of Love, A Wish is Granted, Paths of Freedom, Return of Dragons, and Spaceship Earth. The easiest way to find me on Amazon is just to type in my name, Joy Elaine, and my books will pop up.
All right. Now,
and there's
oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Finish.
No, go ahead.
I was going to ask, is there any more books in the work?
10. There's going to be 10. I just finished the book 10, actually. I haven't published those. I'm looking for a publisher to pick me up and promote me in that way. So the first 6 are published. Books 7, 8, 9, 10 are not yet published, but I did finish, writing the 10th one recently. I'm going to be writing children's books. I've seen the covers of books that I'm going to be writing, so I'm going to be a busy lady.
Yeah.
The masters have told me that these movies are going to be books. These books are going to be movies at some point in the future, which I thought was pretty dang exciting.
Yeah.
And I'm on Facebook. I've got all those links on my website to joyelaine.com, and the books are available on Kindle on Amazon also. So if you have a little glitch tomorrow trying to order anything from my website, just give me a day or so. I'm going to get it straightened out. And check out the blog. I think you would really benefit from reading some of the articles I have about it.
Now, speaking of the blog, what are some of the blogs on there? Because I know, like, one is Ashtar Command, The Real Guardians of the Universe, which seems interesting.
I've got one about
the planet.
I've got several about the fairies. I've got one about Laponi. I've got about I met Cleopatra, Mark Antony, and Caesar are on our Joy Council, and they're still together. The cool thing is that they loved each other when they were alive, and they still love each other, and they share a room. So love never dies, isn't it? Just really magical? There's things about helping to dream the 8th dimension into reality. I'm really hoping that you take advantage of some of those. And the other area to really look at is the one called World Missions. There's about I don't know. There's 16 4-minute or around 4-minute, 3 or 4-minute, 5-minute recordings I did about how you can take part in honoring the animal kingdom, the best me I can be, the spirit of fun, the air we breathe, animal rescue, heal the waters. So you can, you remember you were the ones that have the vote about what happens with Earth. And those missions are really wonderful ways for you to add your input, besides joining in the transmissions that Tonas and I send out from the books in the Joy Chronicles series. Step up to the plate and start taking part in making the changes that you want to see, because peace is in our future. It's now, and the more you focus on it now, the more you bring it into our present moment and into the future.
Now, how can we, as humans here on Earth and stuff like that, in the fifth and sixth dimension, how can we receive those transmissions that you were talking about?
There's a paragraph in the back of the book that I describe what to do. If you meditate, you can just sit down on your sofa. You can just shut your eyes. And I've created energy bridges. The masters helped me do that to all the events in the book, so that you, no matter how much you see or feel or hear, when you intend to step through, you'll be stepping through time. Actually, if you start with the first book, you'll be going back to 2014. April 4th, 2014 was the first transmission we sent out from his spaceship. You'll be able to step back in time you'll manifest on the bridge of that ship, and you'll see Tonas and I standing in front of a big window with a golden sphere in our hands. And you can send your wishes and your hopes and your dreams for your life and for the earth into that sphere, and then we'll transmit it to you. And you can do that as many times as you want. There's more transmissions in that book. There's some really magical ones in the following books. So that's a fun way for you to time travel and for you to travel to different dimensions. If you are at all sensitive to energy, you'll notice a difference between when you're sitting in your living room or your whatever room you start, and when you step across into that higher dimension, to the 10th dimension in that first book. There's a lightness there, there's ease, there's an energy there that I think you'll be able to tell a difference. So join us in the books, in the missions, or even if that's not of interest to you, you know what? Just have fun and read the books, because that uplifts everything. Just remembering the magic of life and how magical you really are, and the hope and the knowledge that is going to be our future, that uplifts you and uplifts everyone around you. So, if you're not a person that likes to get involved like I am, and I want to get in there and start digging around and doing stuff, just sit back and read the books. They're entertaining. You can read them as fiction if you want. My web assistant, she is positive they're fiction. She tells me, Joy, those books are fiction. I say, okay, you can believe that. You can read them as fiction, but they're my experiences with these beings.
Yeah, that's what makes you you. I mean, that's the experience you had. Right. In the paranormal field, I mean, there's skeptics that don't believe in ghosts and spirits and stuff like that, but there are people like myself that have had those experiences. Right. And those are my experiences. I can't tell these spirits, go visit this guy so he can, or this woman so they can experience what I see. It's up to them to want to show themselves to that other person.
And it's up to the other person to be open to seeing them.
Yeah.
Yeah. So everybody's, you start where you are. And some people, this is radical information. Other people, it's not. There's not that much new. I really think it's cutting edge. It's difficult to fit these books into a genre, because imagine a Harry Potter that's real.
Yeah.
That's about the closest I can come. That's real, and it's
some people that like the Harry Potter series would love something like that.
Yes, yeah. But see, that's fun, and it's a lot of drama and trauma, and there are some of that in my books. Like I said, my mother had just died, and then I discovered that another universe had gone to war, and they were possibly threatening to attack Earth, and I'm like, oh, great. That wasn't what I'd signed up for,
Like,
but
wait, I wanted the peace and love, not the
right.
war and destruction.
Yeah. Right. So, when you imagine it, can you imagine? I mean, thank God that our entire universe is not at war, but there is one that's right now in that situation. The entire universe is at war. They'll work their way through it. We've tried to assist as much as we can, but you can't get in there. We just like the Earth, we can't go in there and bang heads together. That's not how the Ashtar Command works.
Yeah, you can't be like go in there and say, "Guys, stop it! This is not how it's supposed to be." You got to let them figure out it for themselves, basically.
Yeah. So the Ashtar Command does not go in with guns blazing. They've got such impenetrable defense systems that they just go in there and they if there's a ringleader, what they do is they take the ship and they just take it to another universe. It takes them quite a while to get back because they can't just think themselves back. I thought that was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Just pick them up and take them somewhere else where they can't be such a nuisance.
Yeah, it's like, leave this alone.
You're
messing things up. Yeah. You go here, stay there. All right. So, again, where can people find your books?
Amazon would be the best place. So just put in Joy Elaine. If you can't remember the names of all the books, there's 6 of them. Put in Joy Elaine and Amazon, and in the next day or two, I'll have them back up on my website, joyelaine.com. I got a great blog there. I got those world missions that you can take part in. If you got questions, email me from my website. I'm on the computer off and on all day long, and I'll be glad to answer. info@joyelaine is my email.
All right. And how can they find you on like Facebook and stuff like that?
I'm sorry, info@joyelaine.com. My website is linked to Facebook. You can put in author Joy Elaine. I have an author website and on Facebook, and also just a regular old, personal website. Personal site on Facebook. But author Joy Elaine would get me on Facebook.
All right. Well, I want to thank you for coming on. It's definitely been an interesting and eye-opening interview. And like I said, I believe that we're all going to reach that higher plane of existence, as I believe, in my religion, to ascend to that place where we all can be masters and stuff like that and be able to control the happiness and stuff like that rather than the bad side of things. But to each their own.
My last piece of advice is quit watching the news.
Yeah. I try not to watch too much TV as it is.
Yeah. Find the good things. Focus on the good things in your life, and that's what's going to help you more than anything.
Yeah. Now, let's see. We got 6 minutes. Is there anything else that you want to mention?
I just want, I just hope, this, I think the books, they're going to help you step into your role in Earth's future and beyond. You can choose to sit on the beach and read the books and, not take part of the wave that these books are bringing about, this wave of evolution. And even just sitting on the beach and reading the books is still helpful because, like I said, it uplifts you, it uplifts those around you. One of my blog articles that is really, I think, would be really fun for you to experience, and we can do it real quickly if you like.
Sure.
Just imagine an energy bridge, all right? And it can be any kind of bridge that you want because it's your personal vision. It could be a great big one like the Golden Gate Bridge or just a little bridge that you'd be comfortable with.
Yeah.
And see that bridge, and I've already set this up, so it's, your imagination will make it, will help it activate for you. See that bridge starting right where you are now and stretching up into the 8th dimension. So if you'll just take a couple steps mentally, you don't even have to move your physical body. See yourself mentally taking a couple of steps onto your bridge, all right? Mm-hmm. And then dance there. And when you feel like there's stuff coming up in your life that's really challenging, check to see that you're still on your bridge. Step back on your bridge. If you got some people in your life that are in trouble, how do you think you're going to help them? Are you going to dive off your bridge and get caught in the water with them? That's what I've done a lot in the past, and that's really been what they call enabling. Both of us ended up being in trouble. So stay on your bridge, on your energy bridge of love and non-duality, and send them love. The blog is called The Bridge into Non-Duality, and I explained it a little bit more, but it's a really simple exercise. You just imagine yourself taking a 3 or 4 or 5 or even taking a running jump and jumping onto your bridge and stay in there, because that will help you stay above any of the turmoil that's going on now in Earth. I mean, like I said earlier, there's stuff that's coming up to be cleared, to be released. We're going to come to a point where there's just nothing that's hidden anymore.
Yeah, I mean, I got my whole troubles, but I tried to stay on the positive side of things, because if I go down that rabbit hole, as they would say, into that depression and stuff like that, that's going to drive me down rather than lift me up. Right. If you're jumping off the bridge into the water to try to save somebody, you're going to end up both drowning, just describing that. So the bridge into non-duality, I mean, that's where we're headed. Why not give yourself a little heads up and get a head start on everybody else? Yeah. Take a step onto the bridge and dance, Yeah. Have some fun. All right. Well, once again, I want to thank you for coming on the show. Another great show. Listeners in the chat are loving it. And thank you again. Hopefully, if you want to pick up a book by Joy Elaine, go to joyelaine.com. You can go get them on Amazon right now. Hopefully, she'll have that up and working soon where you can get it on the website. Right. But check that out. Thank you again, Joy. It was a great pleasure to have you on the show. For those listening, tomorrow night I'm going to be joined by my great friend David Ullman out in Beverly Hills as we talk about his highly haunted location that sits 150 feet away from where the Sharon Tate Manson murders happened. I've been to that house many times, over 200 times. I can tell you things about that, but I'm going to let my friend David Ullman tell you about those. He's appeared on such shows as Ghost Adventures, Ghost Hunters, My Paranormal Story, stuff like that. Some of the major paranormal reality TV shows. So be sure to tune in tomorrow night as I welcome my friend David Ullman. Until next time, or till tomorrow night when we talk to David and the haunted at the Ullman house, I shall see you on the dark side. Good night from Talking the Night.
Now, am I supposed to send you a book? What was I going to do? Am I doing that? Okay. I was going to send somebody a book, I think. It's not quite, I've got about 4 or 5 more days before it's going to be finished trying to get this book up on CreateSpace. Now that CreateSpace is no longer CreateSpace, it's been a little bit of a challenge. So, I mean, if you give me an address, I can send somebody a book if that's what we were going to do.